Starting.
All right. Let's see what we got. All right, but we're in.
And this is a good amount of separation for our Facebook Live.
I think so. I think we're following all of the regulations that we need to be following. Uh-oh. Lost it.
So we're going to have a discussion where I have my Facebook Live going. Ram has his Facebook Live going. We're also on a Zoom meeting. And so we're going to get into a discussion here. Unfortunately, we don't have anybody running camera, so we can't answer questions during our Facebook Live, but certainly post comments, because I'd love to hear what you all have to say. One, about what's happening in our world with the coronavirus, what's happening in your personal lives, more importantly, what's happening in your businesses. Over the last couple of days, I've spoken to at least 100 clients, and so there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Well, Friday morning. Today is my 15th wedding anniversary.
Oh, congratulations.
Everybody's at home asleep, so I'll be home right after this.
Well, that sounds like a good plan, Howie. And Howie, you know, one of the reasons why I really wanted to talk to you about this in particular is because I know that you yourself have gone through quite a bit of things. You've talked to me a lot about your experiences. Why don't you let some of the people that are watching us know about some of the tough times that you have gone through, either economically, personally, and that you've had to really find the means within yourself and within other people and within the resources that you had to get through them. So can you talk a little bit about that and the mindset that it takes?
Yes, absolutely. So for those of you that don't know, I've been in advertising and marketing now for about 30 years. I've owned an advertising agency, but I've also been a partner in about close to maybe 20 other businesses. And this last 30-year span, we've seen a lot of challenges in business. Natural disasters, 9/11, Y2K, tech bubble burst, 2008 recession, the Great Recession. And this is another one in that string of what people might call catastrophic events, life-changing events, trying moments, whatever it is. And so over these 3 decades, with all the businesses I've been involved with, and then the marketing business that has been pretty much continuous for the last 30 years, I can tell you that each situation is different, and it takes certainly different skill sets to get through them. But there are some basic and fundamentals that we can kind of piece together and say, you know, if you have these in place, you're much more likely to survive it than if you don't have these in place. But I'll tell you that I've worked with 1,500 clients just in my marketing business over the last 30 years. So I've seen a lot of businesses come and go. I've seen the personalities of the owners of the businesses affect their survival rate. So if the owners didn't have the right mindset and didn't have a positive outlook, even if their business had a chance of surviving it, they didn't, because they gave up before the business was ready to throw in the towel. So personal mindset is one of those things that carries through any kind of challenging times. I know at Studio Martial Arts, we talk about a positive attitude. We talk about leadership. We talk about being strong, about persevering, about being aware, but not necessarily panicking, or not getting to a point where we're immobilized because of fear. I've heard fear being described as false evidence appearing real. So it's fear, I think, and anxiety come from a place of not knowing what the outcome is going to be. And so if you project a negative outcome, you usually will achieve that. You hit what you aim at. Exactly, you hit what you aim at. Having a positive attitude doesn't always give you a positive conclusion. But if you have a negative attitude, you're almost always likely to not achieve a positive goal. But if you have a positive outlook, you at least have a much better chance of achieving something positive than if you look at it negatively and it's not going to work out.
Yes.
So it's perfectly okay at this time to have a bit of anxiety, a bit of fear, but that should be used as a motivator and as a way of reinventing your business to see what you will do next. And for those of you that don't have businesses right now, but thought about starting a business, as crazy as it sounds, this is a great time to start a business. Now, are you going to get a bunch of clients? Probably not, unless you're selling masks or toilet paper or bottled water or, you know,
the things that people are
or hand sanitizer. But that's not what I'm talking about. If you want to launch a business, this is a great time to start thinking about it, planning it, getting stuff together, and putting together a business plan, because this will end. We will get through this. We'll look back on it 30, 60, 90 days from now, a year from now, however long it takes for us to get through this. We're going to look back on it and say, man, I wish I had done this. I wish I had bought stocks when they were down 25%, 30%, or however. Nobody can pick the bottom, but we know right now there's a 25% discount from their high.
Yes. So what you're really saying is that you want to make sure that you don't let that panic get in the way of the opportunities that are here right now in any way, shape, and form.
Exactly. So, and we have a lot of small opportunities. So we have an opportunity to eat healthier, because while there is a run on toilet paper, paper towels, hand sanitizer, bottled water, milk, and eggs, I've been to the grocery store several times. There's no run on vegetables. There's no run on healthy food. There isn't.
That's right.
Great opportunity to start eating healthy food.
That's right. And to exercise also. My wife, you know, she's working at home right now, and she's starting work an hour earlier. She's finishing an hour early, and she's jumping on the bike. You know, she's loving that she can actually do that. So she's taking that opportunity to live healthier, just kind of like what you're saying, just in a different way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We all have more time now.
Yeah.
We all have extra time, because some of the things we had on our schedule, a lot of the things we had on our schedule, have been canceled. Weddings, social events. You can't go to restaurants right now. You can pick up and take it home, but you can't go and sit at a restaurant, so you're not wasting extra time going out to lunch with people, those kinds of things. Most people have to work from home now. You can still go outdoors. I've been going out and walking or running every single day. Since this whole thing started.
And highly recommended too to get outside and walk around the block a little bit, because you don't want to be inside all the time without sunlight, vitamin D, all that good stuff. You want to be outside in some way.
Exactly. But I'm thinking about what kinds of things can I do to improve my business, to not only survive it, but to improve it during this time. And if it means helping clients and not charging them with certain things, that's what we'll do. But my office is right next door. I have some people working from home. I have some people working from here. They're all separated into separate areas. They chose to do that. I gave them the option. How would you like to work in the next, month or two, or however long it takes to get through this? And they came up with a plan. We're getting our work done, but we're actually, in a strange way, busier than we had been, because we have a lot of clients making updates and edits to their websites and sending out messages, sending out communications, and we're doing that for them. Okay?
Adapting, basically.
Adapting. We also had, this week alone, 4 new client pitches. We did Zoom meetings, we did phone meetings, we sent out proposals. I got a proposal into the U.S. Army that wanted some help with something. So, and we're filling out the paperwork now to be a vendor for the U.S. Army. So there are opportunities. Okay. Now there might be fewer clients buying stuff right now, but there are people still buying stuff outside of what's being bought grocery store, because at the end of the day,
Mm-hmm.
we all have to continue to live and buy stuff. Now, we might be on hiatus from buying televisions for a while
Mm-hmm.
or buying shoes, but I'm surprised I'm still getting emails from shoe stores that have buy one, get a second pair at 50% off. I think all that is ineffective right now.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's thinking about that right now.
Yeah,
Okay.
everybody's thinking more about their safety than they are about
That's correct.
their wants, basically.
That's correct.
Yeah.
But how are these businesses trying to improve their position
Mm-hmm.
so that when everybody gets done with this
Mm-hmm.
and is ready to go buy, are these companies positioned to sell to them?
It's
Okay.
a good thing to think about. You have to really look at everything from all sides in this instance. And you can't do that if you're worried. If you're worried about this and this and this, right? So you've got to, that's why opportunity, what you're talking about, is so important at this moment, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But people wake up worried and go to bed anxious,
Mhm.
and that robs them of the entire day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Also, we talked about getting healthy and exercising. That is actually something that can help you during these times anyway.
Mm-hmm.
People that are healthier and fit are less likely to either contract something or get sick, and if they do get sick, they tend to recover faster.
Yeah.
So there's no downside to it. Again, this is an opportunity to reset. We have a hard reset that came from an external factor
Mm-hmm.
that we can't control.
Mm-hmm.
That's the catalyst. What change is it going to make in us? Is it going to make a positive change with a positive outcome, or is it going to make a negative change with a negative outcome?
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, I think for most people, it's going to be a negative change, a negative outcome.
Yeah.
Because some people, a lot of people, are looking for something to go wrong.
Yeah.
And guess what? They found it in this.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't cause it, but you can focus all your energy and turn it negative into what's been happening.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying there aren't any negative aspects of it, and I'm not burying my head in the sand and saying, oh, this isn't really happening. I'm not denying it.
Right.
It's real, and it's bad, and it's real bad.
Yeah.
What are you going to do about it now?
Well, it sounds like, because we've been talking a lot about this week, and you've been on the classes about the be aware but not on guard. And it sounds like you're saying that very same thing by you're aware, but you're not burying your head in the sand. You're keeping your focus, and you're not also rigid and worried and panicked and stopping and fetal positioning, right? You're going and you're doing active things. Is that what I understand? Yeah.
And you got all the words right, and instead of active,
Yeah.
I would say at this point, you could make the argument that I'm being reactive,
Yes.
but in essence, I want to be proactive.
Proactive.
In other words, I might be reacting to what's happening in the marketplace,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm also being proactive in coming up with new ideas
Mm-hmm.
on new things that I am implementing that I would not have otherwise implemented
Mm-hmm.
had this not happened, had I not had this extra time, had this not affected our business, had this not affected my clients' businesses,
Mm-hmm.
had this not affected my family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So while we're waiting for our kids' school to send out assignments and things to do, I jokingly told the kids that they were going into Howie's School of Hard Knocks.
Yeah.
So starting last week,
Mhm.
they learned how to make beds, how to clean up after themselves, how to sweep, how to help me pick up leaves.
Mhm.
And then I also joked that it's either that or I'm transferring them to Spanish class with my wife, and they're going to have to take
Well, you know,
Spanish 101.
but at the same time, I think that's good because I've talked to a couple of the other parents, and you know, one of the parents that I talked to, he said he's a traveling instructor. He teaches for some people to keep focus under pressure, and he says he's spending this whole time with his son, teaching him how to properly do his calisthenics right, his push-ups right, that he's always had some difficulty with.
Right.
And you know, it's true that this is a good, but that's opportunity that you're talking about.
That is.
That's the opportunity, and those things that we focus on are the things that we're able to achieve, basically, in this time. But what do you think is it that separates primarily the people who think negatively and what drives them to that, and the people that think positively and what drives them to that. What do you think drives them to either extreme? Is it just natural? Is it just what we've seen? Is it their experience? What do you think it is?
Oh man, I think it's a lot more than natural ability. It's very easy to say that Michael Jordan was a natural athlete or a natural basketball player. It's very natural to say that these people had some, it was already in them. But when you ask all of them, they all say it's hard work, perseverance, changing mindsets. And they can take you back to a time when they weren't like that.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with me. I can take you back to a time where I didn't care, and I think about like all these kids partying on at Clearwater Beach and in California and being defiant of the rules of social separation. And I think back, would I have done that if I were 17, 18 years old? And the answer is I probably would be doing that as well. So I think everybody has the opportunity to change their mindset, change their attitude. I think that that for me, I used to find comfort in things like procrastination or complaining or living below the line and blaming others or blaming situations. And at some point I shifted, and there was a tipping point for me where I realized that whether or not I was right in blaming situations or blaming others, it wasn't effective and it wasn't helping me in any way, shape, or form advance my cause.
Right.
And so I then started taking responsibility for not only all the things that I did, but for everything that happens around me.
Yeah.
Even if there's a small chance that I can blame it on somebody else, I still took responsibility because there was something I could have done. Even though it wasn't 100% in my control, there was something I could have done to remedy that situation or make it better. And so when I started taking responsibility for everything that happens around me, I started achieving a lot more than the previous Howie achieved. And then I started finding comfort in that. So now it's highly unlikely that you'll hear me complain about anything. The other thing is, when you put yourself in the perspective of what others have or don't have, for example, for 25 plus years, I've worked with kids battling cancer, programming, art projects, working as a board member for a camp for kids with cancer in Kerrville. And I meet kids that are 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old that are battling cancer. Some of them are not going to survive to be teenagers. And then I think, what right do I have to complain about anything? What right do I have to complain? One of my cars got a nail in the tire. Something happened with, my house. Yesterday, on the way home, I was drawn to this homeless man as I was driving on 410, and I pulled over, and he was at a bus stop, and I put it on my Facebook page, and I just started talking to the guy. His name is Jonathan. He looked like Santa Claus. He had a certain great positive aura about him. And he prayed. He showed me a book on the apostles that he was reading, and I asked him if he was hungry, and I said I was going to pick up some food and for my kids, and he said yes. And so I went and got him a burger, fries, and a Coke, brought it back. We chatted for a little bit, and he said, we should, at this time, we should pray for our country. We should pray for everybody affected by this pandemic, and we should all believe in God. Makes sense. And then I think about, people complaining about having to stay at home. And then I think, but you know what? But we have a home to stay in. So do we use the words, we have to stay at home? or do we change our mindset and say we get to stay at home? It changes the meaning a lot. You know, I mentioned Michael Jordan earlier, you know, and I use this example sometimes with my team when they said, oh, it's just a web edit. I go, it's not just a web edit, it's a web edit. It makes a big difference when you drop that word just, you know? And then I'll say, you think Michael Jordan ever said, it's just a game, or it's just a practice? It's a practice. You take it serious.
So what it sounds like, a lot of that mindset comes from a good awareness of what's around you, and also taking responsibility in that, and then changing according to that. That's what you're doing with just the web edit. It's a web edit. It's a tone. It's a different way to look at it,
and it's important.
Yeah.
Every coronavirus web update we're making is very important to each one of my clients.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%, because that affects them, that affects you, that affects everybody, and you need to have that awareness to be able to provide that security and that responsibility. And you see a lot of what's I've been thinking a lot about, and you and I have talked about this because we've had a lot of conversations. But when you want these things, particularly right now, because that's what you want to come out when you're squeezed. What did Wayne Dyer used to say? The orange, when you squeeze it, what comes out, right?
Yes, I love that story.
Yeah,
so I'll share it here.
Please, go for it. Yeah.
So when you have an orange, and you cut a little hole in it, and you squeeze it, what comes out of it?
Well, orange juice.
Orange juice. But what if you take that orange and you put it on a counter and you hit it with a hammer? What comes out of it?
Orange juice.
Okay. What if you take that orange and though you throw it off the Empire State Building and it splatters on the ground? What splatters on the ground?
Orange juice.
And why is that?
Because that is what's inside.
That's it. That's what's inside. Okay. So that's happening to us right now.
Yeah.
We're the oranges. Okay. This coronavirus scare, everything that's happening in business, the stock market going south, whether or not you like whoever's in office now and the things they're saying, all those things are squeezing us.
Yeah.
And so what's coming out of each of us right now?
What's inside.
It's what's inside.
Yes.
So how you react right now has more to do with what's already inside you than it has to do with what is happening outside.
Yeah, and it's a tough thing, but I really believe that that's why that awareness needs to be there, because if we see what's coming out of us, then we can change it. That's kind of like what you were talking about earlier, because you saw that you needed to take responsibility, you changed it. And I think that every person can take that message right now. It's like, okay, I'm being squeezed. What's coming out? Okay, that I don't like. What can I do to change it? Or that I like. What can I do to expand on it? And I think a very internal awareness is very important right now. Internal and external, because we've got the external and we've got the internal coming out, right? Yeah.
Well, look, I will tell you, I can tell that even though on the outside I'm appearing to be calm, given all the stuff that's happening in my personal life and business life, etc., because not everything is roses. I can tell you that right now.
Right.
And I can tell though that there is some level of stress because with my kids at home, with discussions with my wife that might get a little more heated than normal. This is all stress related that's inside.
Right.
And as much as I want to contain it, hide it, eliminate it, let it dissipate, it's there. If you don't feel a little bit anxious, then there's something wrong with you. You know what I mean? Then you're living in an alternative universe. So by no means am I trying to say that everything is hunky-dory and I'm having a blast and this is great and fantastic times. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
But that should be a very minor part of your life right now.
Right. Right. It should be. You should acknowledge it. You should be able to see that that's happening,
Right.
like you're doing.
My sister Tirsa will say, you can have a pity party, but let it last 5 minutes and then go on with your day.
Yeah.
Feel it,
Mm-hmm.
think it through, feel anxious, feel fear, and then go do what you're going to do the positive stuff.
Right.
I think there was a book or a saying, feel the fear and do it anyway.
That's a pretty good saying. I've never heard that one before.
Yeah.
Feel the fear and do it anyway.
And do it anyway.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean do something careless.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean go out to the beach if we had a beach.
Yeah.
You can go to the river walk, but I don't know that anybody's there right now.
Yeah. Party of one.
Right.
Yeah.
But you talk a lot about awareness, and I love that word, awareness. And then the kind of like industry buzzword right now is mindfulness.
Yeah.
You hear a lot of talks about mindfulness. So I've used this opportunity, this newfound extra time,
Mm-hmm.
to work on my mindfulness.
Yeah.
First, I went to go look it up on Google so I understand exactly what it means.
Right.
And then I watched some YouTube videos about it. And then I've read some articles about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've been, since last year, I started meditating with a friend of mine who was a former Hindu monk. And I asked him to teach me how to meditate starting last year. And I still see him every day. Most days, I would say 5 out of 7 days of the week.
Mm-hmm.
And I go to his house, and now we sit kind of apart.
Yeah.
We have a little chime and we'll meditate. Yesterday we meditated for almost an hour.
Mm-hmm.
It's incredibly enlightening. And I combine meditation with exercise and now with mindfulness.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you the hardest thing, I have a hard time meditating, and it's taken me, I've been doing it for almost a year, and I still feel like I'm not very good at it. My mind is racing all over the place, but we have to find a way to quiet our mind. So some people get it through exercise, some people get it through, stillness or being alone, other people by listening to music,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever it is. But we have to find a way to quiet our mind because there's a lot of stuff bouncing around.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm also trying to do it now. This is my new thing, is to during this last week, is to do it through mindfulness.
Yeah.
Because if you focus on something
Mm-hmm.
that you're being mindful of at the moment you're in there at the present time,
Mm-hmm.
like here, even though we're talking about this situation,
Yeah.
my emotions are not high based on what's happening in our society,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm focused and mindful of what we're doing and that I'm sitting here with you.
Right.
And I'm focused on thinking about one thing, which
Mm-hmm.
is this interview, and then talking to people at home
Right.
and interacting with people at home.
Mm-hmm.
And during my mindfulness exercises and my focusing and my meditation, I thought about that this should be a time where we don't have what everybody's calling social separation.
Mm-hmm.
It's physical separation.
That's a good point.
And so I don't want to separate from people socially.
Mm-hmm.
So I already talk a lot on the phone, and I already text like crazy.
Right.
But I'm stepping it up.
Mm-hmm.
I'm calling more people. And if I don't get a hold of them, I text them or I send them a message.
Yeah, and that also goes back to what you were saying about opportunity. I mean, I FaceTime with my niece, who's a baby now. Her mom calls us, and we FaceTime with her all the time now because of this situation. So that is a good way to keep social. We're very lucky in this time that we can do that.
Right.
Yeah, because they couldn't do that back in the last pandemic in 1918.
Right.
Yeah, so that's a blessing.
Right.
Yeah.
That is. And so I want to encourage everybody to be more social than you've ever been.
Mm-hmm.
Call your cousins, call people you haven't talked to in a long time, call a friend. I've called a few friends, and it's funny the level of warmth that I get now
Mm-hmm.
from those people, even people that I talk to regularly,
Mm-hmm.
is elevated right now.
Yeah.
I have some of my guy friends that are tough guys. We end the phone call with "I love you, man. Hey, I love you too."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's a warmth that you can feel over the phone.
Right.
You can feel it in a text because people mean it right now.
And people need it.
And they need it.
People need
and they
it.
need it. So we can initiate that, and I'm doing that now. I've been checking it. My parents both live in San Antonio.
Mm-hmm.
They're divorced, but they both live in San Antonio. And I used to go, not proud of this, but sometimes a week without talking to one of my parents.
Mm-hmm.
Busy life, cats in the cradle, kind of living out those lyrics.
Right.
Now I call them every day.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything I can get you? Can I go buy something for you? Don't go to the store. No, I'm fine, and this and that. Okay, well, touching base.
Yeah, and it's the same. I mean, I think that because there was somebody once told me that, whenever a crisis hit, the best or the worst can come out. And right now it seems like a lot of the best is coming out with families, at least from what I've seen. People are, like I told you that story about the dad, he's able to spend more time with his son and teach him. And I'm doing the same. I'm calling all of my family members, seeing how they are, my brother and sister who are out of town and everything. And it's an important time, and that's the same squeeze element, right?
Yes.
The good stuff is there. It's coming out. And I think that that's the main positive message that should be out right now is you are able to do so many good things, the opportunities and everything from there.
Yeah. Well, look, anybody who owns a business or is in business or works for a nonprofit, it's a great opportunity right now to communicate a positive message to their constituents, to their clients. If you're a politician, this is a great time to communicate with people.
Mm-hmm.
Help them feel comfortable about you don't have to be able to predict what's going to happen. I have no earthly idea.
Yeah.
If you want 100 opinions, go on Facebook and you'll hear them, and it'll be the biggest gamut, spectrum of what's going to happen. From like, in a week or two, kids will be back at school and everything will be back to normal, to this thing is going to last for the next 18 months and the world has changed as we know it forever.
Yeah, and the thing is that now we're at a situation where something can change daily. It can change for the better or for the worse, but the thing is we don't know. So we just have to navigate daily. And I whenever this goes on, it's important not to look at that big. It's important to try to focus on where we are now, right?
So I'll watch the news, but I'll watch for about 15 minutes.
Yeah.
I'll flip the channel a couple times, and then I'll read one or two things, and then I'm done. Then it's back to matter at hand.
Yeah.
Focus on family, focus on self, focus on my business, focus on my friends, my family, and that's it. Yeah. That's what I spend, most of my time on, and then I spend very little on the news. You can pick up everything that's happening and everything that happened today, even though it changes every hour. Watch it in the evening then.
Yeah, and you can get lost in that pretty easy. I sure did.
And you can't control any of that.
No,
you can't control what's happening in the stock market. Yeah, you could sell all your positions, but then what? That's already been proven to not be a good strategy.
Yeah.
Had I sold everything after losing 40% of my portfolio in 2008, I wouldn't be where I am now. Because by 2010, my portfolio was back to even. And then from 2010 to now, it's gone way up.
Right.
So have I given back some of that gain? I have. But in the grand scheme of things, I'm still ahead. And I can't control it.
Yeah.
And do I want to get out? Getting out is the same thing as burying my head in the sand.
Right.
I'm waiting for an opportunity to buy back in.
And is it fair to say that those kinds of decisions are basically panic based? If the negative, if you did sell, if you did, and so, but that's what we're seeing a lot of. Though that's what we're hearing a lot.
That's what we're hearing.
That's what we're hearing.
Well, the market globally has lost. I read an article yesterday. $6 trillion in the last 6 days.
Yeah.
Okay, that comes from people selling, valuations going down. Are all these businesses that are publicly traded going to survive this? Probably not.
But a lot will.
But a lot will.
A lot will.
If humanity survives it, which we will.
Right.
businesses will survive it so they could supply us with goods and services.
That's a very good point.
Okay, so there are companies, a lot of them, that have been around over 100 years.
Yeah,
they've seen a lot of things,
and they've seen the Great Depression.
Oh yeah,
and they made it out. And one of the things is, what was it? I always think of a Tony Robbins thing. He said, "Who are the ones who lost money in the Great Depressions? The ones that," and everybody says sold, and then everybody comes back in, and so. That's one of the things that I've been trying to think about in that time. Don't just panic and make decisions. And that just doesn't extend to the stock market, right? That extends to what you're talking about. What happens if you went home and you panicked your whole family? What happens if you panicked your whole business? What happens if you did that? Well, it's not going to end up very well, right?
Right. Yeah. Look, I can, we talked about these big, we talked about 08, H1N1, the Great Recession and the Great Depression both. But I'll tell you, there are also these obstacles and things that blindside you in life, and we've all had those as well. So not only do we have to have our mindset ready for these big challenges, we also have to have them for the personal challenges that are equally as big. Right. In 2012, my family and I had a devastating house fire. We were at home, and on a Friday night, midnight, I got up to have a meeting with Ben and Jerry around midnight. Once everybody was asleep is when I can have my ice cream without anybody bothering me. So I looked out my back door, kind of a guy thing, just that. What am I expecting to see at midnight out my back door? But I look out my back door, and the back third of my house is on fire. Wow. Smoke detectors are not going off because I later came to find out that the flames and the smoke was traveling through the attic.
So it was not coming from under it. It was
That's correct.
Yeah.
And I woke my wife up, and she went and got our kids. We tried to get out through the front door, and the front door was deadbolted. And at the time, I had the deadbolt that had a key that you could take out from the inside, and the key was missing.
Oh, okay.
And so we couldn't get out through the front door. So we had to go through the back. About 6 feet from where the fire was, there was a side exit. And that was not the only way out, but we didn't think about going into the backyard because from the backyard you could see the flames. So our natural instinct was to go out through the side door. But the side door was next to the garage, and I didn't know it at the time, but the cars were already on fire. And so we got out. I was dialing 911 as we got out, taking the kids out, and the fire department showed up 5 minutes later. When the fire department showed up, and about 5 minutes after we had gotten out, and my wife and kids had gone to our neighbor's house, and I was standing in the front of my house on the street. 5 minutes after we got out, the cars exploded and the garage collapsed. Wow. And the garage collapsed next to the door and this little hallway that we came out of. So you could say 5 minutes is a long time, but then 5 minutes is not a very long time. So I felt very anxious about that. Fire department ended up calling other fire departments or other fire trucks to come and help them, because at this point the fire had gotten really big, and with 6 cars and a motorcycle exploding and on fire, it caught trees on fire, it caught my neighbor's fence, 2 neighbors' fences on fire, and so those things started going up in flames. The rest of my house was starting to burn, and the fire department called other trucks to help them, and they came from the back streets, and it took a while to put it out. It later flared up again, and then they put it back out. That next night, we stayed in a hotel, and it turned out that we stayed there for a month and a half, and then we ended up in a condo for almost a year and a half, while the house, the insurance, the rebuild, the permits, all this stuff happened. And that again, it's traumatic. As much as I kept a positive attitude about it, for the first few nights I couldn't sleep, and every time I closed my eyes I would see the flames, I would see the explosions and those kinds of things. And somebody pointed out to me, they said, you you had post-traumatic stress disorder.
Mm-hmm.
For a month and a half, my two oldest kids kept waking up in the hotel and saying that the hotel was on fire. And then for a month or so after that, they would talk about how stories like Bambi and how there was a fire in Bambi, and they were relating everything to fires.
Yeah.
So we took the kids to therapy, and the therapist worked with them, and they had post-traumatic stress disorder.
Oh, that's horrible.
Meanwhile, at the same time, while we're in the hotel, a few nights into our stay, and we're just like in some kind of haze about what happened. My wife finds out that her best friend's husband was murdered in Mexico, and so my wife broke down because of that. So there are things that happen in life.
Yeah.
I can go through medical things I've gone through, etc. And you could focus on it and throw in the towel and just say, yeah, I give up because I can't deal with this. Or you could say, I know something good is going to come of it.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's a lesson in it. I know it's tragic.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's nothing I can do about it now except how I choose to respond to it.
Mm-hmm.
And what good can I do? What good can I do now for other children who are battling cancer because of the ones that passed away? How does that inspire us and motivate us to do more for others?
Yeah.
And do something positive. So that there is always a lesson in it.
Right.
The tragedy is if you don't learn a lesson from something catastrophic, or you don't use it for a positive outcome. That's the real tragedy. The real tragedy is when you don't do anything positive from it.
Yeah, and I saw a quote the other day that I really liked. It was, how can you make the worst thing that ever happened to you the best thing that ever happened to you? And that's and it sounds like it all stems from that mindset.
It stems exactly from mindset.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you a great story that illustrates that.
Yeah, go for it.
So this rabbi is teaching a class, and the kids are 12, 13 years old. And at the end of the class says, and with that, I want to finish off by telling you, you should thank God for all the good things that happen in your life. But with the same fervor and the same enthusiasm, you should thank Him for all the bad things that happen in your life.
Yeah.
And with that, have a great weekend. See everybody on Monday. So all the kids leave except one, goes up to his teacher, and he says, Rabbi, he says, I get it. I thank God for all the good things that have happened in my life. When I got a new bike, when I have a birthday, when I make a new friend, when my parents take me on a trip, I thank God that I have this opportunity to have all this great stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But how do I thank Him for all the bad things that happen in my life? Mm-hmm. And the rabbi, being a young rabbi in his late 20s, says, that's a great question. And he says, while I can tell you my opinion of what that really means, I don't feel like I have enough experience in life to share that with you. I know what it means to me. He said, but there's a very learned man, elderly man in his 90s, lives on the edge of town, in the outskirts of town. And you should go see him because he's a very wise man and he's a scholar. And you should ask him that question. So that weekend, the kid sets off and he walks. And at that time, it wasn't like, in today's world, the further out of town you live, like at the Dominion or whatever, the richer you are. Right. Back then, the further from center of town you lived, the poorer you were. So this kid set out and he went to the outskirts of town. He went past the city dump and past the cemetery and gets to this one-room shack falling apart. That must be the guy's house. Bangs on the door, nobody answers. Banging louder, nobody answers. Pushes the door open. He came a long way, he's not going to be denied. So he opens the door and he sees a little old man sitting at a wooden bench, at a wooden table, reading by candlelight, with his face buried in a book. And he says, excuse me, sir. Guy doesn't answer. Walks a little closer and raises his voice. He goes, sir? And the man looks up and he goes, yes. And he says, is your name Benjamin? And he says, yes, I am Benjamin. And he says, are you in your 90s? And he says, I am. And he goes, well, you're the man that my rabbi sent me to come see. He said that you're a scholar. And he says, well, come closer. He says, I'm almost deaf.
Mm-hmm.
And as the kid gets closer, he sees Benjamin's face in the candlelight, and he sees that his eyes are covered in cataracts and his face is covered in boils.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, what can I answer for you? He says, would you like to sit down and talk about it? And he goes, I can offer you a glass of water. He says, but I'm very poor. I can't offer you anything to eat.
Mm-hmm.
And the kid says, no, I don't want to sit down. I'd like to just ask my question and go home if that's okay. And he says, that's okay. He says, so what's your question? And he says, my rabbi said I should thank God for all the good things that happen in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And we should all thank God for all the good things that happen in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
But with the same fervor and the same enthusiasm, he said, we must thank God for all the bad things that happen in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, I don't understand that. He's like, how do you thank God for all the bad things that happen in your life? And the man thinks for a moment, and he says, I'm sorry that you came all this way. He says, I can't answer that question, you see, because nothing bad has ever happened in my life.
Wow.
So you're absolutely right, Ram. It's mindset.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you think that all this bad shit is happening to you,
Mm-hmm.
it is happening to you.
Right.
But it's not, life isn't happening to you, it's happening for you. We talked about changing one word from have to get to. Try changing life happens to me versus life happens for me.
Mm-hmm.
This is happening for us in some way, shape, or form.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not sick and you're not dying and you're at home and you already made 3 runs to the liquor store and you get to order from HEB and you have everything you need for the next 6 years,
Mm-hmm.
and you have a nice house with a pool and your family's there and everybody's healthy, this opportunity is happening for you.
Mm-hmm.
What are you going to do with it? How are you going to share in your good fortune? How are you going to help others? How are you going to help yourself? How are you going to help your family? What we do in this period, we're going to have to look back on.
Mm-hmm.
And are we going to look back on it and feel proud?
Mm-hmm.
Or are we going to look back and feel ashamed?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Most of us are going to look back, are going to have the opportunity to look back. This is not our end.
Mm-hmm.
Might be the end to a business, might be the end to a job, might be the end to some other things that we thought were our rights to have and to succeed in. But we are going to look back and there will be a new reality. What are you going to turn that into? Is it an opportunity or is it a devastating blow that cripples you or takes you out of the game? I'm not getting out of the game. I'm focused on where we're going to be a year from now. I'm actually excited,
right,
about what's going to happen in the future. This is a cleansing process, you know. I was last week I was at Pep Boys and they were having a big sale and they're going to close a retail store and all this other stuff, or close a retail stores in Texas or whatever they're going to do. For all those business that were already injured,
mm-hmm.
This might be the nail in the coffin.
Mm-hmm.
But for everybody else who's healthy and strong and planned and saved and has a thriving business, you're going to have less than you did, but you're going to survive it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you already had one foot in the grave, this is the nail in the coffin.
Right.
And this is a cleansing process. And this is an opportunity, because if you want to start something, it's a great time to start something and start planning it now. Mm-hmm. Because you want to be ramped up 30, 60, 90 days from now.
Yeah. Well, I understand what you mean on that, and it all, it kind of all stems from the things that we've been talking about. And I guess that's what makes a good quality leader, is that awareness, mindfulness, that responsibility, that mindset, all of that makes for a good quality leader. And one of the things I always like to say is, it's like you've already said, if you weren't afraid, there's something wrong with you. Yeah, it's okay to have that fear. It's okay to not do it perfectly. It's okay to make mistakes. Yeah. But if you have that aim at those higher up things, that's what you're going to hit, just like what we talked about earlier. Right. So that sounds really good, Howie, and I'm really glad that I got a chance to kind of sit down with you. And I think we might have, let's see if we have some people that want to ask questions. So we're still in. Let's see who else is here. Let's see. Okay, I'm attendees. Okay, perfect. We got a couple of people. All right. So guys, if you all want to ask any questions, go over to the chat box at the bottom and you can ask some questions to Howie right here. Yeah. We've got a few minutes, and so we're ready to go. So if you want to bring anything up, make sure to bring it up right now.
Now, while you look at questions there, I'll look at Facebook Live over here.
Sounds like a plan.
And see if we have any questions. I know earlier I said we might not take questions, but we have a lot of people watching here. Amy says, we can't.
Here, do you want me to read it and you can answer it over here?
We can't fear. Yeah, we can't let fear dictate what we do. We have to take a breath and find the opportunity.
Yes. Yeah, very important.
Yeah. No, I think we're good. I said, why don't what do you think? Let's make this a little bit personal. You know, you have a business that is 5 years old.
Yes. Go. Actually, it's let's see. Wait here. It's 6, I believe, 7 this year.
Okay.
Yeah. So the big 5 was 2. It was going to be a year and a half ago. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So about half of all businesses don't make it past the 5-year mark.
Right.
Small businesses. Mm-hmm. Okay. So congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay? Thank you. You
very blessed.
You've jumped one of the big hurdles.
Right. Now the next one was 10.
Right. Yeah. And so you weren't around for 2008.
No.
You've been in a strong market for the last 6 years.
Right.
You started at one location, you outgrew that location, and you moved to a bigger, more prominent location.
Right.
And then you've been there for what, a year and a half, 2 years?
It's about to be 2 years.
About to be 2 years.
About to be 2 years.
Okay. Yeah. And then this happens.
Yeah.
Okay. And now my kids and I and your other students are taking martial arts, are taking Kung Fu Wing Chun classes online virtually.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
Temporarily. Starting right after spring break.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
So, how does that make you feel?
Well, I mean, personally, and this is one of the things with me, I'm a little bit more paranoid than the average person. And you and I actually had a conversation about 3 or 4 weeks before this happened, and I sat down with you and I said, okay, Howie, like, here's what I think is going to happen, but I'm a little bit more on this side where I worry. What do you, here's my plans, my contingencies, what do you think about those? And he goes, well, we had our conversation. And basically, I'm a couple things. First, I'm grateful because I am more naturally frugal and cheap, and I have a good nest egg for my business. Not my money, my business's money, to keep me for a good while. 2, I have very good students and very good staff, and I really want to make sure that I do my best for them right now. And 3, I'm worried enough to take action. So like we talked about, have enough fear to do something about it. And so the hardest part for me is aiming at the good right now. Right. Aiming at the good right now because I've made all my plans and I'm ready to adapt to them at a moment's notice, and I've already set everything else up. Now I'm trying to focus on not worrying about the negative all the time, and that's very hard for me naturally.
Right.
Very, very tough. You know, and you know, you were talking about that stress and that press in what's inside, and I have to look at those things. I have to look at those things, and I have to come to terms with myself, and I have to make sure that I navigate through them, and I really have to try my best to understand that not to be hard on myself because of those things. Right. And so that's where I'm at. Okay. That's where I'm at.
Well, extraordinary times call for extraordinary measures. So we all can agree that these are extraordinary times.
Oh yeah.
Okay. But that necessitates us taking extraordinary measures.
Yes. Yeah.
So a small shift is probably not going to cut it.
No. It's we have.
But a big pivot, a big shift, and that causes anxiety, that causes stress, that causes fear, that triggers it.
Right.
But you have to quiet it, and you have to be calm, and you have to proceed with confidence, and be ready to try things that may not work, and shift and try something else, and try something else, and try something else, until you find what works.
Right.
Because if your business is important to you, which I know it is, you have to explore every possible avenue and opportunity to not only keep the business afloat, but have it thrive.
Yeah.
It may not even be a bad idea to put content out like you're doing now on social media, but also put out information about studio martial arts for prospective new clients for after this happens.
Exactly.
Because in addition to martial arts, you're teaching leadership. There's a leadership component to your curriculum.
100%. That's what we're surrounded.
And I can tell you, most people are not leaders. And if you can, through your school, teach children and adults to become leaders, you have something that people are going to need to be taught after we get through this crisis.
No, I agree. And I think it's more necessary after we get through this, because we shouldn't forget. We shouldn't forget the hard times. And a lot of people try to bury them. You know what I mean? And we're all guilty of it. I have too, but those times do define you by what you're able to do. And I'm thinking about, what am I going to be outside of this? If we make it by the razor's edge, we still made it.
Yeah.
And that's it. But I don't want to be there. I want to be able to thrive. And that's a different aim. And you can't. And I feel that if I just hunker down and close and just, okay, let's just see how much we can take, by the end of it, we might not be there.
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So fear and regret
Yeah.
are the twin thieves that rob us of today.
Right.
Fear is what you think about in the future. Regret is living in the past.
Right.
And if you have those two things, you're robbing yourself of present day, today, mindfulness. You can't be mindful if you're fearful of tomorrow and regretful of yesterday.
Right.
Lao Tzu said, if you are fearful, you're living in the future.
Right.
If you're regretful, you're living in the past. But if you're happy, you're living in today, in the present.
And I think right now it's very important to be living in today, especially now. And it's a tough thing. And the thing that I always want to get out is, when we're going to feel these things, we're going to see things we don't like about ourselves, we're going to do things we don't like, we're going to have those things. But if you can focus on a good aim, and that's where you're focused on, not on the negatives, the things that you do, like what you're talking about. Future, you're focused on future worries, or you're focused on regret. That's going to happen. We all have that emotion. But the thing is, if you aim, your aim is what makes you true, not the reactivity necessarily. And it's very important because, I feel that now it's important that you focus on those good aims, and that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah. So Amy Mazal-Skillen was put that quote up that I read. And, you know, one of the things I love about her is she's reinvented herself many times over. And then, ironically enough, my sister tells me yesterday or day before yesterday, she says, you know, I've been wanting to learn how to make presentations on the computer and this and the other. And Amy did a live class online for about an hour. She said that I took to learn how to make presentations. It was great. She said, a week and a half ago, in my normal day-to-day, I've been wanting to do this and I needed to do it for my business. My sister's a dietitian. She said, I've never set the time to do it and to learn it. And I've always needed to do it and I've wanted to learn how to do it. Now I have the time and I did it. And so now Amy's putting up classes. Yeah. And it's great. She's not charging for them. I talked to my friend Scott McEwen, who's an artist who moved up to the Midwest. And he's still doing artwork and he makes paintings, takes him about an hour. He's been selling them online, but he said sales have really slowed down. And I said, do you have a webcam? He said, no. I said, why don't you buy one? I said, I had one of my kids in art class and they suspended art classes because they don't want to put people together. So I said, why don't you do art classes online? If you can make a painting in an hour and you can show people how to make paintings and do an art class, people pay 10 or 20 bucks through Venmo or whatever, PayPal. And you're already doing the painting. All you have to do now is explain it on a webcam. He goes, oh my God, that's a great idea. He might be launching an online art class, and he's a phenomenal artist. He's been an artist for 45, 50 years. He's a beautiful, great illustrator, artist. We've hired him at Sharkmatic to do covers of publications, of ads. He's incredible. He did a painting here for us with using liquid paper on a piece of cardboard. That's and he did a picture of Reagan, Ronald Reagan. Oh, very nice. Incredible. I mean, it's just amazing. He taught my son Max how to make a perfect circle without anything other than a pencil and a piece of paper. And so he put it down and he put the pencil down and then he rotated the paper and he showed him how to put your finger, how to anchor your finger at the point of the pencil and how to turn it. And so my kids learned how to do that. I had no idea how to make a
I can't do it either.
I mean, I always use a glass, a cup, and I go around and then I was like, oh man, getting around my thumb and I mess it up, right? Right. So there are great opportunities right now. But we can't see them if we're fearful. That's a veil. Fear is a veil that covers up our vision to see what is possible and what's available. And it is there. It is. There are plenty of opportunities.
Well, what is, I think it's Nelson Mandela who said, it always seems impossible until it's done, right? And we always have that veil where we can't see, and then we do it, and we're like, oh, and then, and here's the other one. Courage is not the absence of fear, it's overcoming fear.
Yes.
And that's what this is right here. And this is a big thing, and that's why positivity means so much right now. But it's not just a blind positivity, optimism. It's listen, this is going on, here's what we can do. This is what I can do. And I think that that's a very good message. And I really do appreciate it. It looks like we got one question. Let's see what we got right here. Let's see. I see it's right. I was wondering if you guys have any tips on how I could go about explaining this type of situation to my son Christopher in a way where he can understand. I'm finding it difficult to explain the closures and the situations without scaring him. What advice as parents and leaders would you have for me? Thank you and it's very nice to see you both. That's from Brian.
Okay, so I will tell you, I'm the father of 3 kids, and while I happen to think I'm the coolest dad and the funnest dad in the world, I'm probably not the best dad in the world when it comes to how to explain things to kids and all that stuff. But I'll tell you at least what I've done, which is I've minimized it by age and by level of maturity. So I've had some individual conversations with my kids, and then I've had some group conversations with my kids. I have not sheltered them from watching any news, or if I happen to be watching the news and they're walking by and then they see for a minute or two, and then I ask them if they have a question, then they ask me a question about it because I don't want to assume that I know how they're processing it. So I'm not hiding it from them. I want them to know that this is something. Obviously, they recognize it because why are they home for an extended period of time after spring break? I like everybody else, I've used humor to lessen the severity of the situation. It's not that I'm making fun of people that might get the coronavirus or get sick or that lose their business over it or their livelihoods. I'm not making fun of that, but I think that humor has a place in every situation. One of my favorite movies is Life is Beautiful, and it's a Holocaust-related movie, and I think that was Roberto Benigni, if I'm not mistaken.
You are right. Yeah.
And it was a comedy of sorts about the Holocaust, but it's about how a father protects his son and makes it seem like the Nazis and the Holocaust and them getting, try to get captured to sent to a concentration camp is a game. And the father turns it into a game. So that kind of approach appeals to me. I did it when we had our house fire that I talked about earlier, and we were at a hotel, and my kids were very worried about what was going to happen to the house, and it burned, and what if the hotel catches on fire? And I said, hey, we have a hotel, and we have a suite. We have the biggest room in the hotel, and we have a pool. We're going to go down to the pool every day. And we're gonna, you're still gonna go to school, but we're gonna go from here. And then now let's go shopping. We got new clothes. Let's go buy new clothes. But what about our other clothes? Who cares? The other clothes at the house probably smells like smoke. Who wants new clothes? I do. So we went shopping. We got new clothes. We didn't go spend anything. We went to Gap and Old Navy and got a bunch of stuff. I let the kids pick whatever they want, T-shirts and all that stuff. And this happened in September of that year. And so my wife asked me, well, what are we going to do for Thanksgiving? Because I think that year we were going to have people coming over. And I said, who wants to go to New York for Thanksgiving and see the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade? They're like, the kid, I do. And my wife's like, what's wrong with you? I go, well, what are we going to do? She goes, well, what about the house? I go, the house is going to be burnt and exactly in the same situation the week we get back from Thanksgiving. But I said, we're going to New York. And we went to New York, and we went to the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. And like you, I was grateful that I had the opportunity to do that.
Right. Yeah.
I don't have my cars to work on. I don't have a grass to cut. I don't have leaves to blow. I don't have any honey-do lists at home. I don't have a home.
Right.
And I live in a hotel. And I don't have to make the bed. I don't have to wash towels. I don't have to worry about food. There's a restaurant in the hotel. Life is good.
Right.
Now let's go out of town.
Yeah, so use that same approach in Life is Beautiful, which is a great movie. Great movie.
Yeah.
I highly recommend it. If y'all haven't seen that movie,
it's a great movie. But I'm gonna watch it again during this break. But I'll tell you that's my approach, man. It's a great question and it's tough, but I wouldn't overload the kids with too much information about this.
Right.
Because again, you can't do anything about it, and they certainly can't do anything about it other than protect themselves. But they're not going to get in the car and drive somewhere if they're 10 years old. One of my kids might, but so it's not necessary to make them overly anxious, and they're going to pick up. If you are and you're fearful, they're going to pick that up. And so if you don't act worried, they're not going to be worried. They're going to feed off of your energy. So I would say, hey, look, it's a serious thing. It's a big thing. But these things happen. And it's happened before in other ways in history. And people get through it.
Right.
And if they ask you, I wouldn't volunteer the fact that there's, that Italy had its biggest, day for mortality and et cetera and all this other stuff. Well, why go into details? But if they ask questions about whether or not somebody's going to die because of it, yes. But people are also going to die because they don't look both ways when they cross the street. And people are also going to die because they're careless and they don't wear a helmet when they're riding their bicycles. So there are dangers out there, but there are measures you can take to protect yourself, and that's what we're doing by staying home.
Right. So, and that's a very good point to put it in that way. And the only thing that I would add is just always go about it in a good way for yourself. Take care of yourself. Make sure you don't give in to that kind of hysteria, because then the kids are going to feel it. And just talk to them, and then as the situation comes forward, talk to them more. But don't let them feel like that. Don't let them feel like you're going to break because of it. That you have to be that strength for them in that time. And I think that's what Howie is talking about. Having that humor, because he needs to be able to have that humor.
Right, and you got to let them ask their questions.
Yeah.
Because if you assume you know what they're feeling, you're going to probably give them the wrong information. So I let my kids, not as it pertains to this situation, but about 6 months ago or so, my son heard about somebody having died, somebody's parent, a friend of his parent died, or dad died. And so I could tell it was bothering him, and I assumed it was bothering him because it was Max's friend's dad, and he felt bad for his friend. So I started going down the road of addressing that. And then he asked me, he goes, "Are you going to die?" So I realized I was wrong by assuming what I thought was bothering him.
Right.
What it was bothering him was whether or not I was going to die.
Yeah.
So I said, eventually I will die, but not anytime soon. And he says, "Well, I don't want you to die." I said, "Well, I don't want to die either." And he goes, "Well, are you going to be alive like when I get married?" I said, "Oh yeah, for sure." I said, "Unless you wait till you're 80 to get married." And he goes, no way. I said, "Okay, well then I'll be around." He goes, "Okay, good. That's all I wanted to know."
Right.
Then he went on his merry way. How would I have ever guessed that his concern was that I would be alive for his wedding? But I'll tell you what that did for me. It helped me step up my exercise and reduce my addiction to chocolate and ice cream, because I want to be healthy. And I started thinking like, well, am I going to be around for his wedding? And if I am, what kind of shape am I going to be in physically and health-wise? So I better step up my game.
Right.
And I use that to step up my exercise, eating healthy, reducing the chocolate and ice cream consumption.
Right. And well, it's that sounds like a very good approach. And I'm in a different position. I don't have any kids yet, but I've worked with children for a long time. And I think that what you're saying about them picking up what you're feeling is absolutely correct. And that's a very hard thing. And, I've noticed it in ebbs and flows at the school. Whenever I'm a little bit down for long periods of times, it reflects in the attitude all around. So if you just really work on that mindset, and you really work on yourself, and keep that aim on the good stuff, and you chat with Christopher when he needs to talk to, when he's talking to you and he's asking questions, I think you'll be able to manage it pretty well, Brian. So,
And you said something about, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you said something that the students and probably your staff reflect back what your disposition is, and your disposition is usually based on what you're feeling inside.
Right.
And sometimes you can't contain it,
Mm-hmm.
and it seeps out.
Right.
And people pick up on it. Kids don't go from not able to talk to now having a vocabulary with 300 words. Mm-hmm. It's because they've been listening to you all along.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Okay. Right. And one thing that I've talked about in the past that I know wholeheartedly to be true is that life is a mirror that reflects back on you what you are.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There is no designated black clouds for certain people and somebody doling out bad luck,
Mm-hmm.
and negative things to some, and then positive things to others. Life is a mirror that reflects back on us what we actually are.
Mm-hmm.
So if you feel that bad things are always happening to you, you have to look at what you're radiating and what you're emanating, and what you are putting out there, because life is reflecting back to you the way you are and what you are.
Mm. Yeah, and that's but that also is a reason why an aim is so good, because if you're focusing on the negative that you see, and you're not focusing on being better, an image better than you are, you're going to be stuck right there. And so I agree 100%.
And that aim should be a little bit higher than you think you can accomplish.
That's true.
It should always be something that makes you feel a little uncomfortable. It's a little challenging. You got to step up your game.
Yeah.
Got to feel a little bit of fear, a little bit of anxiety,
Yeah,
a little bit of butterflies.
It's tough.
Yeah, man.
It's tough and it's rough, but you know what? You're going to be better at the end of it.
And it's worth it.
And it's worth it. It is. It is.
It's always worth it.
Yeah.
Again, you could look back a year from now. You want to have wasted a year? Because that's all it'll be, is another wasted year.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like to say, some people live 90 years. Some people live 1 year 90 times.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you always do what you've always done, you're always going to get what you've always got.
Well, I think that's a pretty good summation of everything so far, but let's see. It looks like we're good. It looks like we've been over time, which is good, but it's still a lot of fun. Well, Howie, on this first interview that I've ever done about keeping quiet, I'm very glad that you got a chance to come on, and you did a very good job, and I'm very grateful to have you and your family in our school. And thank you very much for doing this.
Yes.
It means a lot. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. It's therapeutic for me to be able to talk to somebody, to socially interact, even though there's no physical contact,
right?
And we're maintaining space. It's important to not separate socially, even though we are separating physically.
Yes, and so in order to properly do the social distancing, I will just leave you with a good thumbs up.
All right.
No worries.
Or we can bow.
Right. Let's do that.
Okay, yeah, let's do it.
All right.
Future black belt, sir.
Future black
belt.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Hey, thanks for sticking around.
Yeah.
This was really fun. Hey, and you know what? All of you that are on Facebook, throw up your own Facebook Live. I'd love to see it.
Yeah.
My friend Miles Zuniga, who lives in Austin, of the band Fastball, started this past Tuesday doing concerts online at 7 p.m. on Tuesdays. He can't perform. He's a phenomenal singer, songwriter, musician, and I've gotten a chance to see him live. He was one of the founding members of the band Fastball, and he's doing concerts online. I'm going to chat with my buddy Ed Morales today. I'm going to see if he's going to do a Facebook Live and do a concert. Take some art classes. Go look up Amy Mazal-Skillen on Facebook. See what other classes she's going to do. I'd like to take a class with her. Scott McEwen, go do your online art class so that I can put Nikki in your class. I'm willing to pay $10.
Yeah.
All right.
And not only that, but also make sure that you guys are doing the things you need to do every day to keep yourselves focused on where you want to be right now, because this is the best thing, being aware but not on guard and keeping that aim to something good, okay? And if you ever want to see us at Studio Martial Arts, please come in and look at our website. We're doing virtual classes right now, and not only that, but we're going to have more interviews like the one we just had today. But this one I really love because Howie's been one of my mentors for a very long time.
Yeah,
good. It's been really good.
And if you want to see like the positive improvement in our 3 kids, because of Studio Martial Arts, my kids have now been in for about 2.5, almost 3 years, probably.
It's been a bit.
About 3 years. And I've seen a big change in them, both in level of leadership and in their focus. So I think it's phenomenal. I think everybody should find something to help improve themselves. And for us, it's martial arts, among other things. But find something right now while you have this extra time.
Yeah, really. Work hard on everything that you're doing, and everybody's going to get through this. and we're going to get through this in one way or another. And in the end, we have a lot of good opportunity now and when it's all over. So just be good, be well, and make sure that you do whatever it is to keep yourself safe, healthy, and moving forward.
Love it.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thumbs up.
Okay. All right.